anybody ever watches these, but I won't.
Okay, I will call to order the Village of Lake Bluff Sustainability and Community Enhancement Ad Hoc Committee for Monday, March 4th, 2019. Can I have a roll call, please?
Certainly. Member Bishop.
Here?
Member Sorensen.
Here.
Member Twitchell.
Here.
Member Patterson.
Here.
Member Johnson.
Here.
Co-Chair Renner.
Here.
Co-Chair Perrier is absent. You have a quorum.
All right, first up is a consideration of the February 4th, 2019 meeting minutes. Does anyone have any comments, questions, or additions?
One on number 8, page 7. It's only community in the North Shore to offer food scrap composting. The word composting was left off, so it says we're the only ones to offer food scraps.
Okay, so noted.
Catch.
That was funny.
All right, can I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes?
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, next up is non-agenda items. If there was anyone in the audience who wanted to speak about something not on the agenda, it doesn't look like we have anyone wanting to do a non-agenda item. So next up is the order of the meeting. If anyone wants to entertain requests, I think we're okay. So take it away.
Certainly. So as provided to you in your packet, our consultants have finished making a final revision of the landscape playbook, our landscape identity corridors, gateways. They responded to a good deal of public comment we received that was also included in your packet. A few things that weren't included, obviously voicemails, conversations, the discussion I had with the Garden Club, in some ways representing this committee. But we think that the consultants have done a good job addressing the feedback they received over the last month. They've certainly been working diligently to conclude this draft for your consideration. If there's any other comments, questions, we're happy to answer those. Otherwise, if you're prepared to do so, we would recommend you, in turn, recommend this to the village board.
I had one question, which was in the, I don't remember what page it is, but where it starts to lay out the costs. It talked about the Lobola piece as all volunteer, and I'm not sure that's 100% right, because they were looking to partner with the village and get chipping and, you know, some out-of-pocket. I just thought that should be clear as opposed to looking like a totally free component.
Absolutely. So that was, we were hoping to have a revised cost estimate back from Lobola for incorporation in here. That wasn't quite ready on time, so that was a placeholder, but certainly
Okay,
that's
so I would
not
say
our intent to present.
move it forward so long as that gets inserted in there.
I do want to mention, I appreciate all the comments from the public. They were very thoughtful. Obviously, there was broad support for this project. I particularly want to thank George Russell, the former village engineer, for his extensive review, particularly as it relates to property boundaries, property areas, proper designations. Also, his mention of safety with regard to lines of sight with plantings and sidewalks, very important, and also letting us know what's buried under some sections of the road, which I had no idea, but because of his history with the village, has helped adjust this and inform this report. Also, we had a number of comments which came up during the meeting, but also in written comments about the overhead electrical. We know that generally the overhead electrical has been an issue, and I think we discussed the costs of putting that underground, but there was a secondary kind of thing that maybe we can look at some point in the future. It was just simply the appearance of some of the structures, and without moving the lines, there might be something we can do with future discussions, just brainstorming here with comment about improving the appearance at least of what we do have if we can't move the lines.
Somebody had brought up that some of the lines might not even be all active lines, so I don't know if that's part of a review
So
too.
just,
Yeah.
so could be removed?
Right.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
eliminate
Right, just eliminate what's not.
necessary.
You're right.
So maybe,
We're still waiting to hear back from ComEd on that front. We approached them with the question a couple weeks ago, so they're still working on it with their engineering.
and as mentioned, one of the additions to this report, besides picking up public comments, was a breakdown in how the next steps would be in terms of how to implement this, or take the next steps at least in terms of finishing up designs. This report includes a breakdown of several projects. They've broken it up into several segments, one of which is the Route 176 up until, what was the road?
Eva Terrace.
Ava Terrace. And then the Route 176 Green Bay intersection enhancements was another project B, and then Project C with the gateway sign enhancements. I also appreciated them providing budgets to complete the actual detailed designs, which would allow the various entities then to take part in this project, including the village and other agencies. And I think besides asking for a motion for this report, I'd like to also ask if someone would like to recommend or make a motion to recommend that we proceed at least with Project A for the completing that design, and then maybe Project B in future steps.
So first, to have a motion to advance it to the village?
Yes.
So are we ready to do that?
Yep.
Okay, I so move that we advance the report, the playbook, to the village.
A second.
Okay.
We third.
Okay. I'll probably need a roll call.
Certainly. Member Bishop?
Aye.
Member Sorensen?
Aye.
Member Twitchell?
Aye.
Member Patterson?
Aye.
Member Johnson?
Aye.
Co-Chair Renner?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. And a second motion to recommend to the village that we proceed with the detailed landscapes, the design with the consultant for Project A.
What page is that on?
It's right here, the last one.
I believe it's number
That's
27
some
in
new,
the.
new pages.
It's a lot of pages.
Okay, so moved, I'll move.
Okay.
I was gonna let these ladies.
I know, I'm like,
because-
trying
I'll
to
just
find
go
it, but yeah.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Roll call, please.
Member Bishop?
Aye.
Member Sorensen?
Aye.
Member Twitchell?
Aye.
Member Patterson?
Aye.
Member Johnson?
Aye.
Co-Chair Renner?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, great.
Right?
It's an exciting project.
We're efficient.
It really
You
is.
guys did a lot of work on this too, so.
Yeah, thanks to village staff and
Yeah.
the consultant.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll make sure to share that. I'm not sure if the board will hear this for the first time at their meeting on next Monday or in April, but when we know, we'll make sure to share that with you.
Great.
Thanks.
Just one last point on that. I think what's good also, not only about finishing the actual detailed designs so that the parts can be worked on, but the design will also include budgetary costs for each one of those items. So that will help the village board and village staff to understand how to prioritize those in the future budgets.
That's great.
Okay. Next up, the sustainability plan.
Certainly. So, as you all may recall, and if you don't, it's there near the back of your very thick packet. Again, apologies for the thickness as well. Should have set that up front.
All good stuff.
Yes, very important material. No filler here. But the SEC has always had two very key mandates as implied by its name. The first has been community beautification, of which your landscape plan is an excellent example. The second is with crafting, not just pursuing sustainability initiatives, but with crafting a sustainability plan for the village. So when I first came here, we were in the middle of chickens and bees and had a work plan with the village board. That group requested something more formal, and so based on your feedback over the last few months, we've prepared something that we hope meets your expectations as far as a full draft. So a few things I would highlight. One, I'm happy to go through any sections if we need to. I didn't want to necessarily go through a full presentation unless that's desired, but a few things I would point out. The first is things that maybe make this plan a bit different. And the first is, in looking at other sustainability plans, there's been a lot of talk about how do we do, about planning for public outreach or planning for publications, and something that we've done here that I think has been well received and our reviews with others has been trying to use this unto itself as a publication, try to teach people about why these things are important, what we're already doing, what can individuals do.
So
try to-
embedding it.
Yeah,
what you
trying to
mean.
embed it, use the plan to achieve a goal on its own, if you would. Which hopefully you find to be an effective approach. The second thing I would say too is, there's always sort of a tension. On the one hand, you as a village are trying to, as a governmental body, we're trying to plan for things we'll do ourselves. We'll talk a little bit about that at Lake County here a little later. On the other hand, we're always trying to plan for how do we collaborate, how do we work with our community partners, how do we work with the community as a whole. And again, something to think about as you look at this plan is, did we strike the right balance there? There's a few other action points in the memo as well. But I want to give some time for comments, for questions, and we'll talk about next steps after.
Well, I wanted to say that I thought, did you write it, Glenn, or with it doesn't matter who, but it was really thoughtful, and I actually loved seeing the information about what's going on in Lake Bluff currently. I mean, it was fascinating to me. We do a really bad job with water, and we don't do very good, there's certain things we're not so good at, others that were terrific. So I think that was great to embed in there. So anyway, it was clearly a lot of hard work on someone or a group's part, so I just wanted to say thank you for the time and effort that went into it. That said, I had lots of little comments too.
Certainly.
So I don't know how you want to go through those or talk to you about those
If there's
separately.
non-substantive ones, probably best, I'm happy just to accept those and work through them.
Yeah, I mean, I think the couple things that I would say, I don't think I saw the word biodiversity in here once, and I think that's, maybe I'm wrong, but I think we're in an incredibly biodiverse area, part of Illinois, part of Lake County, and I think it's really important to recognize that as why we care so much about our public open space and protecting it, and by inviting people in their yards to extend those public open spaces. So biodiversity, it seemed to be something that was missing in there. And then in terms of the sections that you had, it seemed like green buildings fit under energy conservation, but a lot of green building stuff isn't just about energy conservation. So that was one question, because I think as a village, that's a really important thing. And I'm just spewing these off, so is that okay?
No,
Do you want me to
keep
take a
going.
breath?
You're good.
The other, so in terms of that green construction piece, for example, bird-friendly windows has nothing to do with energy. I don't know that it adds much to cost, but it's an easy thing to incentivize people to do or encourage. Another piece related to stormwater solutions is I think it's very important, and it's sort of referenced, but to use the term green infrastructure. And I loved the what you can do sections. I thought that was really powerful, and probably one of the places, I would also encourage us to consider this a living document, not something that we just, adopt and then put on the shelf. And so I think especially the what you can do is something that could be modified. A minor detail is Conserve Lake County, I don't think exists anymore. It's part of open lands.
That changed between when we started writing this
Okay.
and when we stopped. So I'm not
That
sure if
explains it.
they've still kept the certification program out there. There's a little bit
Yes,
of language
yeah, but
added.
now it's under open lands, so there's just a detail. So I think those were the main things: biodiversity, green infrastructure, green design, green construction.
Yeah.
And then a focus on pollinators as well. Didn't know if we could just encourage people to, can we ban chem lawn applications?
I think it's worth discussing. It'll be, I think, reduction in use, obviously it's on our long range.
It's referenced in here obliquely, but
Right,
it's, yeah.
I think it's definitely something we talk about. I think it will be a challenge for us to do a complete ban in town because of our mix of property rights and sustainability, but I think it's on the list for a reason.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and just the education around why. I mean, we're building the story right now, but we can certainly promote that more.
Speaking of green structures, did we reference our construction waste standards that we implemented a couple years ago? Don't we have the,
I'm not sure about that, but certainly that
we-
deserves a spot.
where we require demolition of structures and construction waste to be separated and sent to certain, that's also an accomplishment of the village,
Nice.
so. Any other comments on the plan?
I was just trying to roll up here. I like the way, Glenn, you gave us the charge that the village board had given us when they put the committee into being a few years ago. And I wondered if we were hoping to do anything. I haven't heard anything about any disaster mitigation that we were charged to address, and public health was also on there. And I don't remember, since I've been on the board, ever talking about anything, but I feel like most of what we've done would contribute to the public health, but we don't mention it. So I thought if we wanted to add anything about that. And as far as disaster mitigation, I'm not sure what that would be, but flooding or fire, or, we haven't talked anything about that either. And then, the other thing was that I think that our section on ravines could be a little bit stronger on what we actually, as a board, would hope to accomplish as, to protect the ravines, even going as far as saying that in the future, something could be changed in the zoning to protect building near the ravines. I know that would take a while to go through, but it could be a good effect in the end to have zoning that would actually push the building at the edge of the ravine back a little bit further than it is right now. I think it's only 5 feet that you can have.
It's a bit more than that, so
Not-
principal structure, I think it's 20 feet and then a foot out for every foot high, or
Right, but
something
it's
like that.
close that you can still put in other things that are in there for the, and then that was all I had, other than the fact that I think that if we all read everything that you had in the appendix,
Yeah,
we
don't
would
do that.
actually have a master's degree in this area, and it was fantastic, the amount of work that went into it and the depth of the knowledge that went into this. I was really happy to see that whoever worked on it put so much work into it. That was all I had.
About the disaster mitigation, I sent some information that my firm did, but other firms are doing it in other communities. They're using the term resiliency now, and I mentioned a little bit. I sent a PowerPoint to staff, and I can share it in the next meeting just as an attachment, but that's what they're using for disaster mitigation is resiliency. And the presentation that we did, or that I saw from my company, does a nice job of talking about the intersection between resiliency and sustainability, because there are things that overlap, and then there are things that are completely separate. They have things like when we talk about flooding or rainwater, they show a picture of a house with a large rainwater collection system, and they say this is sustainability. The next picture is a picture of a house raised up 10 feet off the ground and said this is resiliency. So there's different parts to this, and I think since this is a living document, this won't be just what it's going to be. I think perhaps in the near future, we can talk about disaster mitigation and resiliency a little bit more, about what the town can do to deal with that.
I mean, it is in here. I mean, that's partly why I was talking about green infrastructure. That's a big piece
Right.
of it. And the native plants as opposed to
Right.
buckthorn or grass. You know, it's all a piece of it, but maybe being more explicit about how those.
Right,
attack.
and I know that the village, when I was on the board, Drew and others were working on disaster plans with Lake County. And there was something that I had started to help with, and I still owe them a report on, was should there be a major environmental event, you know, like the -23 and the substation goes out in town, and where do people go? Where's their warming centers? Where's their food? Where can, you know, where do you go? But it also ties into a lot of things like, you know, the fact that we have so many bike paths that in a time when there might be an emergency fuel shortage, you know, we have those paths. So there's a big intersection between sustainability and resiliency, so.
Good, I'm glad you referenced back to disaster mitigation. I remember having this conversation and, you know, what would happen if, you know, as an example, the tornadoes that struck in Alabama. I
Right.
mean, it's that sort of we can do all of these pieces along the way to build the resiliency, but I know the village sends out a note to sign up for is it Code Red or? And so some people are paying attention to that, but we should make sure that is, you know, overlapped a little bit more and really put out there as a community.
The only other thing was, recently, we had talked to Tesca about the fact that a lot of people want to know the names of plants and the names of trees and so on and so forth, and how difficult it is to be able to label things. And recently, I saw a system where they had a number and a small tag where you could use your phone. And you just clicked on the number, and it would bring up the technology to tell you what that tree was. And you could use the number throughout the village wherever you wanted to label something or tell somebody about a certain monument or whatever it was throughout your village, that we might want to say something about the possibility of, in the future, with a wish list, we would like the technology to take the place of paper and signage throughout the village, something like that, that would definitely be good for the environment and help our people to understand what everything is. That was all I had.
I was just wondering about the solar power, because I know you've been talking about that, the village, for solar panels, and if we wanted to put something in there. I don't know if you guys have come up with I know you were talking about coming up with a plan or an ordinance type
Sure.
of thing. And ComEd is now giving rebates for solar power, so it's something that, I don't know if you want to incorporate that or not, but.
Yeah, so it is in there a little bit under energy conservation. As far as things going on in the village right now, there's been 2 recent developments. So the first, up until, John, you might have to help me out, 6-8 months ago, it would be a relatively complicated process if you had a residential house and you want to put solar panels on top of your house. Now, I mean, that's still not an uncomplicated process. You can't do it yourself, but you don't have to come in front of a committee to do that. You can just apply for a building permit, you can get it. So that's new since we started drafting this. The second is, you might have heard community solar grants, Solar for All, programs under those names that were introduced by the Future Energy Jobs Act a couple of years ago that are now starting to spool up. So the village itself, we're participating in 2 RFPs for that, for our own municipal power sales. So those would essentially have some or all of our power provided solely through a very complicated economic system, solely by solar. Say that 5 times.
That's great.
Think about that.
And depending on how the results of that go, some of those proposals we anticipate would have the option for people in the village to opt in. You could also do it on your own as well.
Yeah.
So there's some progress there in addition to what you would plan for.
Okay, so those are good things to get out there.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to take a look at that. I think also too, I don't know if we have permits, costs associated with solar, but it'd be nice if the village waived those for anyone willing to put in solar. But there's a lot of things we could look at. It was interesting, I was in California and talking to our engineer out in that, and he just mentioned to me that they just recently passed that any new house has to put in enough solar to be net zero for the house. And of course, it's California, so the amount of sun is significant. but the technology of solar has gotten cheaper and better and more efficient.
Right.
And I said, well, what are you gonna do with the existing house stock? And they said that eventually, once they get through a couple of years of doing this on any new home, they believe they can have legislation that would go through and require it for existing homes, but they're still working that out. But I just thought that was fascinating that they could get to a point, because residential homes are a large portion of the carbon footprint and energy use, so.
And to dovetail with one of your points, Sophie, part of that program has sort of been, it's kind of parallel to CAFE standards, if you're familiar with those. So CAFE standards say US fleet mileage efficiency per gallon is supposed to be going up at a certain point. Doesn't necessarily prescribe how you do that. In California, it's the same way. So right now, everyone's carpeting roofs with solar.
Right.
And they'll probably stay cheap to do, but the mandate is actually percentage energy efficiency. And so in theory, the more efficient these houses get, the less they'll need to meet that
Correct.
mandate.
Right.
So
But if you think
kinda
about,
neat.
yeah, if you think about it, it does make sense, because the cost of a new home in California versus solar costs have come down now, but it's only a small percentage of the overall costs. So even, and, you know, but,
Glenn, one other thing I thought in the section about natural areas, I thought we should, we mention conserve Lake County or open lands, but we don't have any mention of Lake Bluff open lands. And so I think something about collaborating with them to build the health of our public open space is important. We're incredibly lucky to have a local land trust in our community. So to acknowledge that it's a partnership, I think, is smart.
And if Larry McCotter is watching, I do want to point out, it is in the first paragraph.
Oh, is it? I apologize if I
So,
didn't
but
see that.
we can put in
Okay.
there some more.
I apologize.
Yeah,
No,
it
that's
is.
all right.
See it.
There's a lot to read. I can't expect
Is
anyone
that, is
to.
that Larry McCotter's phone number there?
Hi, Larry. On a slightly different note, is there currently a plan in place for how this is going to be accessible for community members? Because there's so much valuable information on household changes that can be made. However, my concern is that people aren't going to be able to access this necessarily if it's just sent out in an email or put on the website. So what is the plan in terms of getting the community to actually participate in kind of taking the initiatives that are advocated for in the plan?
That's a great question.
I think we talked about it briefly a couple meetings ago, but I don't know if we ever really.
What can the high school environmental committee do? Club.
That's a good question.
Well, you know what you could do, because this stuff is, and I haven't gone through our entire village website, but some of the stuff is located in the website, some of the information. I wonder if there's a way to create a website which collects this information and provides direct links. Like, you guys could start develop a webpage called Lake Forest, Lake Bluff Green Government or something, and have hyperlinks and information which in there that takes you easily to the points within the website. It almost could be a website on its own, or the village could have a website within a website, so that just takes you right to all the information.
Right.
Yeah. Does everyone get the village newsletter? I know most people do, and maybe different times of the year we could give little blurbs on, it's spring and it's easy to compost now. You can start putting your scraps in because you're doing a leaf bag, or, that sort of thing could easily be added, and people would just see it and know what to do.
And then provide a link to the
Right.
page in the
Yes,
sustainability plan.
If they wanted to know more, but we could tweak it with information throughout.
Have a little spotlight
Right,
in that
a
newsletter.
spotlight.
Yeah.
Different times of the year for different projects.
That's true. Highlight, a rotating highlight of different aspects of this plan, perhaps.
I
But
think
how many people do get the newsletter? Is that an
It would go to
opt-in?
all residents, wouldn't it?
Well,
The
depends
email.
which newsletter we're talking about. So there's an electronic one,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that goes to 1,500 subscribers. Can't tell you how many actual people that is, but probably,
Okay,
I bet over 1,000 in the village, if I'm throwing out a number.
yeah.
And then there's On the Bluff, which goes to every household in the village, plus some in the unincorporated area.
And that's quarterly? Is that quarterly?
It's when people contribute to
Get
it.
it out.
Got it. Yeah.
Between quarters and halves.
So we could, I mean, it would be nice if we could, meaning you, could increase the subscription level to the newsletter, the weekly email that comes out.
Okay.
But I appreciate that not everybody wants that in their inbox every week. It does carry useful, timely information,
It
which.
really does.
It's weekly.
It tells you what's
Yeah.
going
You don't
on
get it.
in the village, on the green in the summer. It's really interesting and useful.
So two last things. One, I'd love to see a little stronger language about single-use plastics. I think that's something that, it's pretty easy to make those kind of changes if people try. Maybe there's a way to showcase businesses that do a really great job with that, something like that. And then, you know, any interest in having Lake Bluff sign on to the Paris Climate Accord. Many communities and cities have done that, and it seems like we're well on our way towards, you know, we don't have dates assigned to all these things, but I didn't know where the village stood on that. If the village, you know, you're talking about a number of things that would align with it. So I don't know the details in it, but what would apply to village, you know, if it's achievable or not for the village based on what it's looking at, but if it is, I would show it off.
I think it's worth looking at. The climate accords include specific targets that the
Right,
various
that's what I
location,
meant.
particularly with things like carbon reduction, that might be easy to incorporate. Some others might not be able to,
Right.
from a financial standpoint. But I think at a first step, perhaps it would be good for us to look at that with regards to what we already have planned, and see if there's synergies, and maybe if there's ideas that the local cities who are agreeing to do this, and I think Chicago might be one.
I think
I
it
think so.
is, and I think
Highland
Highland Park maybe did, and there's others in the area
Okay.
that I think have, so.
Okay.
I also think it's helpful when you see something like this in the context of something bigger, so maybe the way we reference Buckthorn can mention, you know, it's a goal of Lake County Forest Preserve for the whole county to be buckthorn free. So, you know, it's
Right.
not us working in a vacuum, it's part of a regional initiative. So, I mean, the climate accord is just the planet's plan, but, you know, just so that,
There's a large.
We have
there's
a context.
Yep,
yeah,
yeah.
we're not making it up.
And we're not going alone, and we're not cutting edge by any means.
Right, right.
We are walking a path with a number of very wise other communities.
Right.
Yeah.
Well said.
All right.
I have one more question, just with stormwater best management practices, we talk about mitigation, and I know the village has been asking for new construction to have 1,000-gallon rainwater, I can't speak tonight.
Storage.
It's too cold. Storage tanks, and is that folded in here? I don't see it folded in here, but we're talking about permeable surfaces and other parts that are, they're just different.
I don't think it's actually mentioned in here, but we can work
It's
that in.
something we're definitely doing, so we should highlight that. 'Cause this
Yeah.
is also where we're at kind of thing, and what we're doing well and not doing well. And
Yeah.
that's definitely one of the
Because
things.
that's,
we
that's
develop.
almost like, I mean,
Sure.
that's almost a more extreme sort of, you know, here's what happens because we get these torrential downpours.
Sure.
But if permeable surfaces and swales and, you know, X, Y, Z are also helpful and supportive, well, then we should do
Right.
all of it instead of just picking and choosing
Right.
if possible, or where possible.
Right. And the flip side that too, again, with the resiliency part, I know that when we
Yeah.
were looking at flooding, when I was on the board, George had come up with a list of items for residents to do around their homes to minimize flood and to help with those types of things. And, some of them included common sense things like, make sure your gutters are clean and they're working.
Right.
Make sure there's covers over your window wells to, prevent water infiltration. But I think that's also where we can grow this document a little bit and provide those kind of information to the residents.
Great.
All right. So would you like a motion to proceed with these comments, or do you want to pick up the final comments and bring it back? How do you want to do it?
Yeah, so definitely I think bringing it back probably called for before we go anywhere public with it.
Okay.
There's a couple quick discussion items I'd like to put to the group. I don't think would take too long if
Okay.
you'd like to give it a try. So the first would be there are 2 goals in this list that I can read out that we weren't sure really meshed with the rest as far as maybe direction or specificity that we'd appreciate some more guidance from you on. So the first number, SR7, says support bring your own bag efforts by retailers and in the community, as well as other programs that promote the use of recyclable bags and discourage single-use waste. We were concerned that, support may not be the right level of specificity or action, but we weren't sure of, where this group's mind was on recommending something. What stronger steps are appropriate.
Incentivize?
So this is all SR7?
SR7, yeah. That's
Well-
page number 6, if you have the
I
draft
mean,
in front of you.
I'd be totally down with just a ban on just, single-use plastic bags.
Yes.
Or not a ban. Where was I traveling? It's 5 extra cents or 10 extra cents. It's
Chicago
minimal.
does something similar.
Yeah.
A lot of places do that now.
Colorado, I can't remember where I was, but, it's a minimal
California's
amount, so if
well
you
known
need
for it.
one, you can get it, but
Yeah.
otherwise,
It's Chicago.
it's just a
Communities in
small
Massachusetts,
thing,
too.
yeah. So,
I think if you do that, then you do have to say that there's a ban on them. And then there's a ban on them being handed out free, so that you can pay for them if you need them. In
yeah, I don't know
Chicago-
what the language should look like, but
In Chicago now, there is a ban on them.
okay.
And when you're there and you go to the grocery store, nobody is there without their own bag. And that's 7 cents. You wouldn't think it would make a difference, but nobody wants to pay 7 cents for a bag.
But you don't have to.
And,
Right.
and so you bring your own, and there's thousands of bags now on the street where 7 months ago, everybody was using the jewel bag or everybody was using the plastic bags, and it stopped.
I think just from a public standpoint, maybe the word maybe isn't banned, because you can still get them if you're willing to pay for them. They're just not
Right.
for free.
But it is a tax.
Yes.
So how does the village collect that tax? It's actually a tax.
Does the city
Inter-
collect those?
But, the grocery store still needs to buy the bags to give away, so wouldn't it theoretically be just offsetting the grocery store's cost and giving you a bag, as opposed to a tax that goes back to the village? I don't know how it's structured, I'm just.
Maybe we could could you,
And, I can, off the top of my head, I believe it's 7 cents a bag, 5 cents goes to the city of Chicago, 2 cents are kept by the retailer for administrative fees
Oh, look
of
at you.
collecting the tax.
You know all that.
Now, parenthetically, I would say, I don't know if if this group would move faster or slower, the thought on the street is that Governor Pritzker will propose a statewide tax in the near future. So food for thought.
Be great to wait to see what happens. I agree, ban
but is he
has
gonna share those taxes with the local
I'm cool
cities
with
and
it.
towns that have to deal with the bags?
I can see
I'm
where
not
that
sure.
was.
Right. And I don't know if it would end up making sense once we adopt something like this, but if our committee crafts a letter that we distribute to our retailers, or to say to Heinen's, gee, are there things you could do so that instead of everyone buying those plastic containers for your spinach or whatever, we can go in with our own bag and get it, or, I don't know, invite them to think through ways to be more sustainable. So as opposed to us being heavy-handed, we want you to do X, just invite them to, by the way, our community really wants to be more sustainable, and we want you to be a partner in this with us.
I don't know if
Yeah,
you're
there are a
familiar,
lot
but
of
Heinen's
single-
has done something. They now, if you bring your own bag, you automatically go into a pool to get a $50 gift certificate at the end of the week.
Who does that?
Heinen's.
Oh.
And they announced the winner of their,
They've never mentioned that to me, but that's good.
I got my own bag.
but they're doing that to try to get people to bring their own bags.
That's
good.
great.
I thought is really good. But
Yeah,
I
the more
noticed,
power we put in the hands of the retailer, the better.
Right.
To the extent that we can, and
yeah.
Right. And
Well,
the
I know
whole
that-
straw thing.
I know that Target must be in a lot of communities and have to adjust some of their operations.
definitely.
Yeah.
And I know Heinen's is in Ohio, and then they're also in Glenview, Bannockburn, and is there another location?
Barrington, I think.
Barrington? And I wonder if any of those
Barrington may be
communities.
pushing them to
So,
do stuff.
it'd be just curious to research, because it's easy to say, well, if you're already complying with this in here.
Right, we would like to.
Those are great practices, why don't we just do them here?
Yeah, I think that's a great
Right.
idea. Low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Yes, this is something new to me, but I've noticed now in the meat area that in some of the stores, and for sure in Heinen's, they're showing meat individually shrink-wrapped in a heavy plastic. And I think that that's something as a committee that we might be able to go through our local grocery stores and just say, you know, these are the things that we're concerned about. Is there anything you can do to mitigate this? Because I'm seeing, even though you take your own bag to bring this home in, more and more you're bringing home more plastic in the packaging. So I think we need to, as a committee, if we're really serious, we need to go a little step further and ask them, not demand, but just ask some of our big grocery stores, is there anything you can do to help?
Okay.
I think it would be nice too if they promoted more, because I know there are a lot of grocery stores that, you know, take 10 cents off if you bring your own bag, or, you know, but you don't always know about it. And if they promoted it more, that, you know, people knew, I think it would encourage them to bring their own bags.
Yeah.
Glenn, does that give you what you need for SR7?
I'd say so.
Basically, we're,
Do you need a little bit more?
No
We have some
bags.
ideas.
Or even on that note, you could include a link under SR7 where you have just a page with like helpful tips for shopping sustainably at the grocery store. Something simple like that. 'Cause
Someone
I think a
must
lot of
have
people
that.
don't know what they can do. Bringing like mesh bags for your produce is a great thing. Being conscious of how much plastic things are wrapped in. So I don't know, I think it's too much to include it under SR7, but having a separate link to just a one-page tip list, or even, you could also include the promotions that the grocery stores offer within that, the local stores as well.
And the Heinen bags aren't that much, and they had some insulation in them.
so if we ever get our booth at the farmer's market, we can sell, you know, the mesh produce bags and,
Yes. We can sit right next to the fire department, who's got a little booth on fire safety.
there you go.
There you go.
That's a whole nother political issue, I know.
No, I was vividly recalling chasing a chicken around the village green, but
Yes,
4 months ago.
yes.
Didn't really
Over a year.
happen.
No, that,
That's an urban myth.
it happened.
Who let
Brian
the
Renner-
chicken out?
I don't know who let it out, but Brian Renner here certainly put it back in. Quite the
Yes.
sight.
I panicked. It was gonna run out in the road, and I
Oh,
leaped on
gosh.
it.
Jeez.
All the bad publicity. Sustainability Committee kills chicken and road.
Don't kill the chicken, you're promoting raising.
Like our turkey that lived in the
Yes.
So Glenn, you had another section, right?
Yeah, similar story, EC5, partner with community destinations to reduce vehicle idling.
Yeah. How's that going?
It's a great question.
It's shocking to see what some people do. Like, they leave the car on and go get a coffee and just leave the car run.
At the
I
high
mean,
school, parents idle for over an hour.
Yeah,
And
they do.
buses
it's
as well.
just shocking.
Yeah.
It's shocking to see.
So I
Well, the
think it was,
buses you might be able to control a little bit
Yeah, so
more.
there's a,
the buses
I
are
think it's,
better.
I
working on
think it's
that.
like a,
there's a law.
There's
several
a
laws
law
about it.
that
Even
they're-
with extreme temperatures, it's something like 15 minutes in a 60-minute period. So there are students there working on it, and as well as getting more signage for the high school that's visible.
I remember, what, was it 2 years ago that our high school committee member was saying that the environmental club was going around and knocking on the doors
Yeah.
and just telling people, but obviously there's a new population that comes in every year, but it also doesn't stick. It just doesn't, which is kind of amazing, because I thought we talked about it, and we talked about working with the schools. You know, if the buses can't idle, why do we get to idle?
Well, the buses can idle. But
But
that's a
for
good point.
limited, at least now they've limited it to some degree.
Maybe I'm imagining it, didn't like Bluff Elementary put signs up?
Yeah,
I
there
feel
are
like they
signs
have
there.
signs
Yeah.
there. I'm not sure that does
There's signs at the
anything.
high school, but the idling buses block them.
That's not good.
Well, at the elementary school, I can say, because I took my daughter once or twice there, you get in the line if you're dropping them off in the morning, and I tried to shut it down, but then the next car moves and you
Move,
start the
yeah.
car up. And starting the car up actually creates that starting process, so there wasn't an opportunity like at the high school where people are just waiting, after school for 45 minutes for the kids to come out, but they do have the signs there, so.
We're currently doing like a particulate matter collection, so we're having the machine kind of closer to the vehicles and farther away from the vehicles. So I think within the next couple of weeks, there's gonna be more information on that in terms of,
Oh, you got a
Yeah.
sampling machine?
That's
Oh, cool.
great.
so we have that going on right now.
Cool.
Maybe the elementary
That's
school and the
something.
middle school could borrow it when you guys are done.
I don't know that I've ever seen a particulate matter sampling machine in my life. It's like a
It's
box, I
just kind of
guess.
like a cylinder, and then you have to plug it in, and you just put like little sheets of paper on it, and then it'll, I guess, suck in the air, and then all the particulates will get stuck on the filter paper.
I know that I've been exploring smart home, and there are now smart home pollution monitors. They sit and they collect information, and on your phone, you can see what the indoor pollution is, and,
So cool.
all right. And any other last comments?
Yeah, probably a good idea to move on from this, but something to be thinking about, and we'll work on ways to walk through it perhaps at our next meeting, but definitely one to think about the priorities we've presented in Appendix A, and also think, doing dates and the timeline for each and every one of these is probably a bit overwhelming, but if there would be 2 or 3 a year for the next 2 or 3 years to highlight, that we think that's probably a good balance of how to really indicate those highest priorities.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think too, we've been working a little bit on the bikes, which I think we're gonna get to a point where I think we've done enough for this year, but then moving on to the model lighting ordinance. But yeah, it'd be nice to know what we as a committee want to tackle next. I also, as we get into this more, a lot of the work we'll do will be recommendations. There'll be legislation that we, like the model lighting ordinance, but some of them may require some investments from the village. And it's important that we target those at a point that fits in with the budgeting cycles, and we get before the village board if it requires commitment of funds. Example would be the bicycle racks. We weren't able to get in this funding cycle for the replacement racks at the train station. So we definitely want to get ahead of that and get early into the village board, our recommendation and the costs, so that we can at least get something every year, in addition to just the regulations and rules and policies.
Is it too late for that?
Yes.
Glenn, were the chickens and bees in here? I don't remember seeing it.
They're not in there as an action step. I think,
But
I know what-
it could be under your what can you do?
yeah, NS7 says pursue creation of neighborhood gardens, and then kind of as a
Yeah, I saw
multiple,
that.
it says continue thoughtful pilots that support urban agriculture.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
You could just add, like, in addition to the chicken and bees initiative, just,
Yeah.
Yeah,
include it
clear it
somewhere.
up.
Well, again, it's important to know what we're doing and the community knows, because I think a lot of people do, but some people might not.
Will we move into goats or anything like that, or just stay with chickens and bees right now?
Ostriches.
I was actually asked about quail today. Apparently they lay eggs that do not have as much lead content in them as chickens. So, who knows?
Interesting.
Yeah.
They're cute,
I don't know a
too.
thing about quail, so
Yeah,
I thought you hunted them, to be honest with you.
but yes, quail fly.
That is also true. Then we'd have to talk about clipping their wings or something, and
Oh,
that's
yeah,
a whole
that's a
other
whole other,
issue, so,
yes. Okay,
one thing at a time.
yes. All right, is that it, Glenn?
I
On
think
that
so.
issue? Okay, then we'll see that at the next.
Yep,
next
if you have
meeting.
any written comments, feel free to pass them over or
Okay.
share them next couple weeks.
Okay.
We'll keep working on that for your April meeting.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, so next up is a village staff report.
Certainly two quick items. One, here at the counter in front of you, as you may or may not know, Lake Bluff's own Sandy Hart, now the president of the Lake County Board. I know sustainability, energy, environment, things of that nature are big priorities for her. I won't say, I don't know how this committee came to be, but about the same time, the county has restarted its Energy and Environment Committee. So this is their work plan on the front with their sustainability consultant, and on the back, kind of their committee's priorities for the upcoming year. It's very operationally focused. You know, when you have an organization the size of the county, there's a lot of what's called corporate sustainability actions you can take that have a big impact, but also some legislative policy considerations there as well. So that's here for your reference.
Is there sustainability consultant, someone who's available to offer any suggestions or guidance to us?
Certainly. So the person in particular, I believe her name's Grace. She's with a consulting group called Quercus, something of that nature. So Highland Park
Oak.
retains her, yeah. Lake County retains her, and then I know Lake Forest is out for an RFP for similar services right now.
Well, I'm just wondering if,
So available.
if that person's goal or job description is to help the county move forward, you know, then
Or the
can,
municipality.
is it someone who you can say, gee, we want to do, you know, whatever, the bag thing, what's going on in Lake County around them? Just, can they be a resource for you? Not that we would contract with them. but-
Yeah, absolutely, I would say so. In fact, you know, we're already working together on one of those two solar RFPs we're involved in is the counties being managed by that consultant. Something that's happening today.
Okay.
Well, it's nice to see this, because anything that, obviously, we're in Lake County, so that some of these things get implemented, they roll right into.
There's also a sustainability center at CLC, and I don't know if you guys have any connect there. I know the director, if that can be a resource as well. You know, if there's just questions and you want to know what's going on around here, I don't know, if it's helpful.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't familiar with that program, so I'd be happy to.
Yeah, I can look up what
More
it's
connections, the
called.
better, yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, their whole goal is to make Lake County more sustainable as well, so.
Okay.
Okay,
And then as a second report, Washington Park. So I saw that she left a bit earlier, unfortunately, but the Lake Bluff Garden Club and Miss Marietta Hance have been working, in particular, I call her out because I know she's been facilitating a lot of this, have been working on the second phase of those plans for Washington Park this group considered late last year. Some bumps in the road of a personal nature, but they're finally, we think, ready to present a final plan to this group. We think that'll be in April.
Great.
So as soon as we get those in, we'll circulate those to you in
Great.
advance. But exciting times, and I know Marietta has already said she's excited for the chance for this plan to be one of the first to be implemented, perhaps, that reflects some of the concepts in the Landscape Identity Corridor Gateway Plan.
Nice.
So
That's great.
good to kick things off
Positive.
quickly.
yes, great. Okay,
Include my report.
all right. Members' report, is there anything anyone wants to share? Any updates that we haven't talked about yet? Okay,
If I can interrupt, Mr. Chairman, one last thing I do want to point out, I was negligent not doing so earlier, but John Scopoletti isn't just here to take minutes. I do want to thank him for his work on some of this committee's efforts over the last few months. He's played a big part in helping keep things moving for the landscape playbook, for the sustainability plan, especially a lot of our surveys and earlier outreach. And so I appreciate his efforts. He's part of what's brought this packet to you today.
Thank you,
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you for your
Yeah,
effort.
great.
Thanks,
Thanks, Glenn.
and good luck on your exams.
Yay.
Okay. I don't have any additional to report, so if you want to, motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second?
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you.
Was that the shortest meeting we've ever had?
It's just under an hour.
The thickest